surgeons keep our hearts beating. They do the amazing, help save lives, and so can you. Your CSL plasma donation can help create 24 critical life-saving medicines that can give Grandpa the chance for his heart to swell when he meets his new grandson, or give a bride the chance for her heart to skip a beat on her wedding day. Every plasma donation helps more than you know. Do the amazing. Help save lives. Donate today at your local CSL Plasma Center and be rewarded for your generosity.
You're about to listen to a podcast full of wonder, excitement, and discovery. It's time for an adventure through Odyssey. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Adventures Through Odyssey podcast, Odyssey Revisited. I'm Will here with John. I know we're a little behind because we had some European-related difficulties, but we're now here for the next episode of Album 74, Buckle Up, Legally Wooton. Wooton discovers that an old friend has stolen one of his comic book creations and is claiming it as his own.
Well, you put out some pretty inflammatory response to this episode.
Yeah, so I started a semi-dust storm when I said this might be the worst Odyssey episode in a decade. And some people agreed, some people didn't. The people who agreed tend not to like Wooton. And I do like Wooton, and I think this was a bad episode.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a particularly good episode. I wouldn't go so far to say it's one of the worst episodes in recent memory. I think it's a little bit of a clunky episode more than anything. Like, they had an interesting hook, but, like, there's just, like, a lot of ground they, like, set up that kind of makes the final confrontation or a lot of what happens in it a little bit, like, interesting.
I would agree. So I'm just going to go over my problems, and John can respond to them how he likes. So, one, Happy Porpoise is kind of a stupid concept, right?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say maybe the writers were like, like, you know, like it was an early idea, you know?
Yes. Okay, so I'm actually not going to rail on Happy Porpoise. So, problem number one, Wooton has clearly filed for copyright before. How is he so ignorant as to how the system works?
Well, so as someone in law school and have done like copyright and trademark stuff, I mean, like this episode, and they say it at one point. I was like, well, they're talking more about trademark there. And then partway through the episode, they switched to like trademark, which are like two separate things. So sometimes that gets a little mixed up. I think the idea was, well, technically you don't have to file for copyright to get like, you have to file with the copyright to like sue for copyright, but you still technically have a copyright whether you register with the U.S. government or not, your copyright, but you still probably should as like a good measure sort of thing. Regardless, I think the idea was he just like never used this character, so he never had a reason to copyright him. But it is weird. He comes to the arbitration, which is I will give Odyssey this, that they're like, well, this would be like, did an arbitration instead of like a court proceeding, because right, a court proceeding, people would be like, what is this? Like, this is weird, and like it couldn't be as like informal. I think I think Wooton's supposed to know a little bit, but he's like, you actually have a copyright? He just like didn't think at all that he had to prep for this arbitration, I think.
Yes, this moves into my next point about copyright. So Wooton seems to think it's okay to take a character created by another company, even though he seemingly had permission, and convert them to Christianity. Now, the only reason I know this is the only reason I know this is they talk about things like she doesn't invite Snappy the shark to her birthday party or whatever the shark's name was. And that seems to be kind of a dig at modern kid shows that have episodes about you don't have to invite toxic people to things if you don't want to.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I guess I'd be interested to see what, like, I mean, are there Captain Absolutely comics right now? There are, aren't there?
Not that they're publishing.
Okay. For some reason, I thought, like, some exist out there, but
Maybe they do.
It was a weird response where he's like, oh, this guy stole my copyright. But what I'm really upset about is that he's like having him be like a bad influence. But then like when he talked about it, didn't seem like a horrible influence or anything.
Right, and maybe that's what bothers me the most. I always hate when these episodes go super, and obviously they're focused on the family media, so they can do what they want. Super, this whole focus on the family, everything needs to include everybody. So that's my biggest issue with the episode, that focus on the family is clearly taking a pot shot at the shows about stopping toxic friendships that they're showing to kids now. And, you know, maybe those shows do have some bad messages, but saying, if you're a Christian, you should include everybody. Now, on one hand, I agree with that because you never know when someone's going to find Jesus. But on the other hand, I don't think it's wrong to tell a kid, if there's a kid who is just bullying you, you don't have to invite them to your birthday party.
Right. I think and this is what I mean by like it's clunky a little bit. Like, because it's like, right, because it's like a weird thing where it's like, well, it's a good character, but they're doing things that I wouldn't put as a Christian comic, and they're not specifically Christian. And so it's like it is a little like it's very like specific how they're doing it, and I'm kind of like that's like. It's just a weird setup because they want Wooton to seem like the good guy where it's like, oh no, you can keep doing this character kinda, but like you have to do it exactly how I want it.
Right. And
also, I'll say this, it really depends on, it seems, in fairness, a like porpoise that's like a superhero that tends to be happy, you know, probably doesn't fall under copyright. My guess is it's like the idea of it doesn't. It's probably like he stole a specific image of the character.
Well, the episode claims the character looks different enough, which I would just like to bring up a Christian bookstore memory that's been locked in everybody's head for years. I had to look up the name of the series. I don't think I had it off the top of my head. Does anyone remember The Kingdom Under the Sea?
I don't.
It was a CG series of Christian videos about talking fish, all of whom were designed very similarly to a certain Pixar movie. Like, just enough to be legally distinct, but you knew that's why they made these.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm just saying, I think if a better episode might have been Wooton releases Jolly Dolphin as a opposition to it, and the episode, because they talk about the difference between dolphin and porpoise at the beginning, and that's the payoff. Like, you can't sue Wooton because it is different enough.
Right. Like, that's what was weird, is he suddenly like, oh, like, it's like not. And that's why it's like gets weird, because then he's more talking about like a tarnishment, which is like a trademark thing, which is like, we don't have to go into the specifics of all of that, but here's the issue. The episode in itself, it feels like they had a lot of ideas. Personally, I think they should have just started the episode at the arbitration, and during the arbitration, like, give like a 1-minute recap of what's going on. It's
instead
like
of
how
a Brady Bunch joke.
Huh?
Instead of a Brady Bunch joke.
Well, there's the Brady Bunch joke. Then they also have like a Braveheart joke.
Oh yeah, they do.
It's like freedom. Like, first there's the birthday party, which is a weird setup. Then it's like you have to establish that he like created this old character and talk about this old character that he created. Then you have this new friend that showed up and like have to talk about the relationship with the old friend. Then you have to go to him. He's developing a new comic and how he's changed, and like how the friend's using it in a way that he doesn't particularly like. So now he has to change it to a way he does like. Then the friend sees it. He tries to sue him, which I don't think that suit would particularly work. I mean,
right.
maybe you could get some of like for the copyright, but it's weird because it's like not published, so like he's a little jumping the gun to some extent on some of this stuff. Yeah, that's beside the point. That's the least of my issues. Right. The copyright stuff, there's issues with it. It's not horrible. Like, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Then you have the arbitration, and then you have this whole weird little like, oh, the Christmas ornament thing, which is like takes up like a lot of time for her to run and go get it.
Yeah,
like, and explain exactly what it is and go back, like losing arbitration. Then he's like, actually, I'm going to help you out. And then I guess the wraparound of what the episode was supposed to be is like, when is it appropriate to use the law to like go after somebody. That was the weirdest thing to me, because it like Chris's thing at the end is like, oh, like talk when it's like best to like, you know, forgive someone or like work it out with them, or to like use like the means of justice or something.
Yeah, so I won't lie. I was convinced Chris's wraparound was going to sound something like, today Wooton had to deal with copyright because a character was too similar to one he created. But when you're created in the image of God, you're all unique.
Well, it seems weird. It seems like someone really wanted to do an episode focused on like when to use like the law, or like it's actually like an interesting idea to talk about. Like, when are you supposed to use these like legal systems in place? One, and it's like weird because they like Wooton's like kind of absolved of it because he doesn't start the legal like he tries to solve it, but he doesn't start the legal dispute, so he doesn't like. It's a weird message to come along because Wooton didn't have to make that decision.
Yes,
in the episode.
I thought maybe Focus on the Family was part of some frivolous lawsuit or copyright thing. It was written by a new apprentice writer, though, who I wonder if they have some experience in the law.
Right, and it's true. It's not the worst. Let me say this. I thought the copyright stuff was and trademark stuff was gonna be worse. If anything, there's just like some blurring of the lines between copyright and trademark. They didn't mention like trademark at one point. You know, I feel like I get why they didn't necessarily want an episode directly involving the police, because then you're like adding another like complicated layer. But just having like something like about like, oh, like this person stole from me. Should I like prosecute them or forgive them, or like are they going to do it again? It just seems like that's not what I gathered from this episode at all. And it feels like they were like copyright's like a separate enough thing. Like it seems like a better thing to talk about like creativity and the importance of like creative vision according to Christian alignment.
Yes.
I don't know. I didn't hate this episode as much as you, but it really is a clunky episode, and I really don't think it proves the point it's trying to make. Because no character ever had to make the decision of whether to like go after someone or not.
Right. And actually, I think part of the reason I didn't like it is, like you said, everyone gets absolved. Wooton does it out of a sense of morality. Like, let's just call a spade here. Phil Vischer just got fully fired from VeggieTales. What's to stop him from trying something similar?
Well, I guess so, but... Right.
I mean, are you saying he couldn't use David French to try to argue they're teaching bad lessons?
I guess you could try to... One could try to prove that, but I mean, like, right, the thing is...
Also, we love you, Phil.
I mean, there's a whole other, like, there's technically moral copyright arguments where, like, they use that for, like, there was, like, a graffiti case involving that, and there was a case involving Monty Python involving, like, moral rights, which I guess would have been more interesting. And actually, like, what Wooton's argument was is, like, well, they're using my thing and changing my intended meaning of it. Like, they could have tried to do something like that. I don't know. It feels like they were trying to do an episode about, like, law and Christianity without wanting to implicate, like, law enforcement or, like actual, like, crimes that you could be put in jail for. And this was the best one they came up with.
Yes.
What?
I was saying, there's your book, Law and Christianity.
I'm sure there's many books about law and Christianity.
Right. Yeah. Again, it's just Wooton has a problem with the lesson and feels like the guy who created the character in its current form would be okay with it, then is shocked. It's just a whole thing. Now, I would also like to point out, I'm glad it's not about money, because clearly all of Wooton's comics are nationally syndicated, because it's noted Happy Porpoise is a local favorite character.
Yeah, that's what was kind of weird about it, and I think that's why, because we wouldn't believe, which is why I think why they did, like, the moral argument of it, because we know Wooton, money-wise, probably wouldn't care that much, but I also wish, like, maybe, like, they could have said, like, oh, they turned, like, Happy Porpoise into an anti-hero.
That would have at least worked.
Or is it? It's Happy Dolphin, and what is it?
Jolly Dolphin is the character
Jolly
Wooton
Dolphin.
creates.
Yeah.
Happy Porpoise is the character in the show,
Yeah.
which between this and the Nut House, Odyssey really loves their locally created content.
Yeah, but I mean, like, right. I wish they would have, like, hyped it up a little bit. Like, oh no, like, it's like moral grays of Jolly Dolphin. It's like, I guess I could get more on it with that. But, like, the arguments he gave, I'm like, that sounds just like a normal comic book character.
Yes.
And, like, even, like, Captain, like, not Captain Absolutely. Who was the one before Captain Absolutely?
Power Boy.
Power Boy didn't necessarily always sound like the most, like, a heavy Christian comic.
Right, that feels like something they made up after they revealed it was Wooton and made Captain Absolutely to be more overtly religious.
Right, which is fine, but it didn't seem like it was, like, anything crazy, or, like, I guess maybe their idea was that, like, the kids are, like, acting out because they're all hyped up on Happy Porpoise, and maybe it's because it was a bad influence or something. Like, there's a lot of, like, maybe that's what they were trying to do.
You know how Happy Porpoise is going to come back? Novacom's going to buy the rights.
I will not lie. If they talk about, like, the Novacom Plus or Nova Plus, and, like, there's a Happy Porpoise show on there, I that would be very funny.
Yes.
Look, I think there's a lot of like ideas that work here. I actually think the idea of the episode is not bad. I think what sealed it is clunky. I think just what sealed the deal for me at the end, where it's like, oh, that was the message of this episode.
Yes, I mean, obviously we don't want Wooton to lose money, but maybe if he lost in some way, like, but this was a waste. Like the guy just said, but Mr. Bassett, you won, but this was a waste of everybody's time.
That would be pretty funny.
So, because, I mean, I know Wooton's not the one who brought down the lawsuit, but he had to know. But, right. And to me, like I said, having the Sleuth Family Robinson try to convert Happy Porpoise like it's DC buying freaking Image Comics back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh. Maybe... I'm sorry, because that's how we got Watchmen, so maybe Wooton will start an Israelites comic series out of that stuff.
That'd be funny.
Anyway. So any final notes on the episode?
No, like... I mean, right, I think there have been worse episodes. I did leave the episode being like... I think it felt really long... And at the same time, like, I think they just, like, I think you could have had a pretty decent episode if you kind of summarized it at the beginning. Or even if it was, like, a law episode and, like, they were actually in a courtroom and, like,
you're frozen on my end, just so you know.
He has the upper hand with the case and chooses then not to, like, pursue it. Or something. Like, he's like, legally, I'm not gonna, like, prosecute you. I guess that's, like, what it is at the end, right? I guess that's, like, what it's supposed to be. But I guess to some extent, that's what it's supposed to trying to say, is that at the end, Wooton didn't pursue further legal action. But it does seem a little off overall. I actually wonder if this episode wouldn't have been funnier if it had been, like, Jay or something.
I don't disagree.
Because you could believe Jay would sue someone, and maybe him deciding not to would have been a better, like, message, but I don't know.
Huh, I hadn't thought about it that way, but you are right.
So,
yeah.
It was okay. I mean, I don't think it's a particularly good episode. I just left it. I'll give it this again. I wasn't scandalized by its treatment of copyright law. As simplistic as it was, I just left being like, that was a little clunky, and I'm like, I don't know how good of a message that is, or like if it really taught kids, when do you do this? Because it's like, definitely didn't teach you like the balance implications of like the law and like Christian forgiveness.
I would agree. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the whole episode spent time being like, oh, like, can Wooton prove his innocence? Instead of being like, oh, like, should Wooton do this?
Agreed. All right. That wraps up this episode. Join us next week for the next episode of Album 72, which will probably be up in a day or two. But I'm Will.
I'm John.
We'll see you next time.
At the Home Depot, we're dedicated to helping you build the skills that get your home projects done right. That's why we offer free and interactive online DIY workshops. During the live streams, our knowledgeable associates help you tackle your DIY projects no matter your age or skill level. You can learn how to install new single-pole switches, as well as standard duplex and GFCI outlets. Register for free at homedepot.com/workshops. The Home Depot, how doers get more done.
Become a part of the Wooton team. We're looking for welders, painters, assemblers, machine operators, cabinet makers, and other positions to build emergency vehicles that help save lives. Join us at our hiring event on Wednesday, January 18th from 2 to 5 p.m. at 3800 McDowell Road in Grove City. We offer a huge $1,500 sign-on bonus and great benefits such as 401k match, medical coverage starting day one, and much more. For more information on what Wooton can do for you, visit careers.revgroup.com and search Grove City.